Hey guys, thanks for joining. How's your Friday evening? We're waiting for Chad to join for what it, what I what I actually expect to be a pretty meaningful conversation. How's the sound? Can you hear me properly? Type me in chat if you can hear me well, because for some reason these AirPods are not airtight. Quite a relaxing evening. Yeah. Friday evening, what you gonna do? Okay. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah, this is a quite a cozy evening for myself. And hi, hello, thanks for joining. And I think that's the atmosphere and the vibe that we will have throughout the conversation with Chad. Chad is a pro. He's a professional podcaster. He's got a professional podcast in the United States, which talks about business in HR. So I'm gonna be, kind of learning the ropes from the pro, and in this role of a host. So we'll see how it goes. Prepare some questions. If you can actually think about the questions to chat about recruiting, hiring, about employment in the United States. I will ask questions. Hi, Tatiana. I will ask questions about the possibilities of getting a job as a Ukrainian, as a person from Europe, a job in the American company. More of this to come. Yeah, so if you can come up with a question with some questions, we'll have 10 minutes in the end to address them. Oh, here's Chad. Nice. Chad, let me invite you. Oh, yes. Sent you an invitation. Chad, how does it work on your end? You're trying out from laptop. Yeah, okay. Might not work from laptop. Let me invite you once again. Hey guys, bear with us. We're trying to connect. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for understanding. We appreciate your patience. I remember when I was in the beginning of my journey as an entrepreneur, we were working with GoDaddy. It's a hosting provider, pretty popular in the United States. And I remember we were constantly calling them to settle some issues, because there were a lot of issues with these fellas. I won't recommend GoDaddy to anyone. And we were calling them, and they would just like their auto messaging machine would say, "Your call is very, very important to us. Please, we appreciate your patience. Please hold the line when we're looking for a representative." And you can hold the line for like 15, 20 minutes. That was a joy. Okay, what's going on? Why can't chat? Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Xana. Thanks for joining. I got some new people who started following me. Oh, here's Chad. Hello.
There we go.
Hey, man. The internet connection is unstable for now. Let's wait a bit. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Are you? How's your connection?
Yeah, man. I'm using Wi-Fi. It should be. Let's try to. Guys, can you see and hear Chad well? Can you type?
Hello.
I want to understand if it's on my side or on your side. Do you have good internet?
Yeah. Wi-Fi, broadband, all that other fun stuff.
All right. Hey guys, thanks for joining.
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Oh, all right. Hey guys, thank you for joining. Yeah, I'm using my Wi-Fi too, so should be all right.
There we go.
Chad,
How's
welcome.
that?
All good. Friday evening, people are making jokes that what you gonna do on the Friday evening? Talk about business, right? What else are you gonna do?
Exactly.
How are you? Where are you right now?
I am in the Midwest of the United States, so Indiana, just south of Indianapolis.
Nice, cool. You have some work trip or?
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, just Spokane, Washington, which is on the West Coast. We're more toward the East Coast. We just got Spokane. So, yeah, good to be back home, but ready to travel again.
Well, man, you know that we can't travel, so I'm listening to you. I'm just a bit jealous, because that's just something that I can't do right now. As you understand why. But great, happy for you, my man, that you're having this journey. So as I was getting familiar with your I can say profile, maybe, yeah. I couldn't even understand how to approach presenting you because you have such a vast and such a colorful, diverse experience. So maybe I'll let you try. How would you present yourself? Can you introduce yourself for our viewers?
Okay. Well, I've actually been in the recruiting and the technology space since before Monster.com was even existed. I was with the group that launched Monster.com back in January of 1999, dating myself. And since then, I've been Yep. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I've been working directly, mainly with Fortune 500 companies, through a bunch of other, whether they're vendors or organizations, to be able to help from a technology standpoint, to be able to help from just the opportunity to use technology for recruiting wasn't 90s. So we had to educate, we had to build, and it was a very exciting time. I've been in this over 20 20 plus years, worked with organizations and built talent pipeline programs and technologies, much like companies like Randstad, Recruit Military, again, Monster.com, those types of organizations. So I've grown up in organization and have been a leader for well over a decade, so a people leader for the most part.
Oh, nice. So you're a people-centric basically person, been dealing with people from all walks of life for your entire life, basically.
Yeah, well, definitely dealing with people, but then also looking to the intersectionality of technology, right?
Yeah.
So people, diversity, programs, and being able to blend those together.
Yeah. I will get back to this technology part because it's interesting. I have been listening to some of your latest episodes on the Chat and Cheese. You haven't mentioned that you actually run the most dangerous HR podcast in the US. And I've been listening to you guys, and you
in the entire
world,
man. Nobody's as dangerous nowhere in the world. I promise. And it's a low bar for HR. Yeah, nobody's got what we got. That's for sure.
Definitely, this adjective is something that you pioneered for for your industry, your HR podcasting. But let's start with some basics. Can you give us like a general perspective on the state of a job market in the US right now, and maybe you can narrow it down to the possibilities that are available for particularly international applicants?
Yeah, I think the biggest question is, in the U.S., are you looking for a European location with a U.S. company? Are you looking to work remote? So is there a location, an actual specific location there, versus are you looking to work remote for a U.S. company? Or last least, are you looking to come to the United States to work for the organization? So there are many different things and many different ways to go at this question.
Let's start with remote basis, and we'll maybe talk about other ways a bit later. But let's start with the remote basis. Although people travel, and I think there won't be against traveling, maybe changing the location, but you gotta understand that the cost of living in the US is much higher than in Europe, and especially than in Ukraine, right? So maybe you can elaborate on the remote basis first.
And I do have a little bit of an understanding. I mean, we do a good amount of travel to Europe, and my wife and I actually just bought a place in southern Portugal, which is an entirely different world than here in the U.S.
Congrats.
But yeah, thanks. It is pretty amazing that Ukraine is really well known for technology developers, not to mention having the ability to tap into a great remote work pool of candidates for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, just their ability and their work ethic is incredibly high. I know of companies that are vendors in the recruitment space that, as a matter of fact, a close friend of mine actually had a good amount of his employees. He's actually in Denver, Colorado. He had a good amount of his development employees, even business development, in Ukraine, and he helped move some of those out, some of those individuals out who wanted to during the early days of this crazy Russian invasion. So yeah, I mean, we've always, at least here in the U.S., we've always known, anybody who's been on the technology side of the house, we've known that Ukraine is a great, one hell of a talent pool.
And deservedly so. We do have, probably this is the entry point that all the graduates, of whatever university, there's a lot of career switchers even. So we know that if we want to get inside of a global organization, right, and get an experience, international experience, this is what we got to learn. And subsequently, we got academies that prepare programmers, developers, software engineers for this matter.
Yeah. So I mean, to more pointedly answer your question, I think it's that everybody understand that remote is incredibly important everywhere. It is very sought after. As a matter of fact, the newest LinkedIn data that I've been privy to shows that only 13% of jobs posted on LinkedIn are remote, although those 13% of jobs, very small amounts, get 50% of the clicks. So here's the hard part for somebody who is looking for remote. There is a lot of competition.
That's interesting. Are we talking senior positions, middle, entry level?
Talking all across the board, because for the most part, and again, it depends on the person. There are individuals who are entry level who definitely want to be in the office because that's a good social scheme for them. That's where they feel like they're more embedded into the work, et cetera, where others might not. They just feel better working from home, being able to focus, being more disciplined. So it depends on the person. I do think that more of the senior, kind of like middle management, middle positions are ones that companies will allow to be more remote, because at that point you've proven yourself, and it allows you to, again, just instead of working on a time clock, you're working on projects, and you're focused on my salaries for this to actually get this work done. If I get this work done, then I'm free and clear. So there's more autonomy that's provided for somebody who's been in the space.
I have friends who believe that, well, granted, technical recruitment is the thing here. So the recruiters are usually asked by pretty much American vendors or the company that actually is hiring for our recruiters to find the talent right in Ukraine. But talking of the recruiters themselves, what are some prospects for them to land a job, say, at Amazon or any big technological giant? Because that's like a dream coming true for them. A lot of them want to work remotely for such a big company like Amazon.
Sometimes the things that you ask for aren't the things that you get. When you're in many cases, Amazon is a big company, but they don't tend to treat their people incredibly well, right? It's more they treat them like robots than they actually do humans. I think it's important when you start to look for positions that you're qualified for, you start targeting in on specific areas. You can do searches. I mean, there are remote specific job boards that are actually out there. One of them I'm actually affiliated with. It's called nomadjob.com. And these jobs, again, they're much different. And there's a different expectation than that of somebody who's obviously going to be coming into the office. There's a continued push and pull from companies who want that control of having everybody back in the office, and then also the supply of individuals who want to do that job in the office, number one, and number two, that are actually physically available, which is good for our listeners, our people watching this stream, to understand the competition is heavy. There's no question. Although the opportunity, I think, in many spaces, especially for technical recruiting, those types of things, they have historically been remote. I mean, I worked with Ronstad the entire teams that we worked with were entirely remote, whether they were supporting big names like Ford Motor Company or actually just the Ronstadt brand itself. So, I mean, there's still a good history there that you can get great talent remote from across the pond.
This thing of post-COVID kind of struggle, or even post-COVID dilemma, if you have to get your employees back into the office, or just let them stay, or be flexible. I mean, in the beginning, it felt like everyone's cool with being remote, right? But now it's, from your words, company, especially the bigger the company, it seems the more obsessed they are about the control. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yeah, I think it's a fairly, good statement to make. Ever since, one of the things that we have to do as leaders in this space is we have to evolve, and we have to be more fluid. The 40-hour work week was created by Henry Ford in the early 1900s. Okay, so now we're actually in a framework that's been around for well over 100 years that has not changed. Right? So now what we have to be able to do as leaders is understand that, is it about the 40 hours of work? Now, in that case, it was because you were on a line. But many of these other jobs, they don't require you to be physically there to turn a wrench. So if this is not about hours anymore. This is about actually maintaining and meeting objectives, right? So I have a project and I have objectives. Am I meeting those objectives? At that point, again, you're just treating me as an adult. I'm going to do my job when I do the job to be able to meet the timelines and those types of things. But again, these are challenges that the old white boy crew here in the United States, which is pretty much what the big Fortune 500 companies are driven by, them and their shareholders. They're more focused on control. So the longer it takes for us to pull them to 2023, 2023, that's just a challenge that we have, that we're going to continue to have.
It brings me to an interesting thought that I have had recently, and this is not my thought. I don't know if you know Simon Sinek. I really like this guy, adore his leadership's kind of philosophy. He says that the concept of polywork, is something that now in this day and age we should really consider. Because if I can deliver on my obligation, as you said, meet all my objectives remotely, why do you care if I have another job or two jobs for this matter?
Yes.
So it's
exactly
the flexibility, and this is what you put into this leadership kind of statement, that they should be okay with this, but maybe they should be honest and call for this kind of conversations. Because if you don't feel like you can approach your leader and have this type of conversation, right, you much better just keep it to yourself, and then a whole variety of problems arise. It's a great point.
Yes, there are, and again, we are working in the old world of and many of these organizations, actually here in the U.S. and I know across the pond too, there are tax breaks in actually opening up a headquarters somewhere. And if I'm not having my people come in to the headquarters location and I'm starting to move remote, then these companies will lose those tax breaks, which I like for welfare. So overall, I agree. From a polywork standpoint, from being able to just meet the needs, you also have a big issue that, let's say, for instance, if I have a full-time job here in the U.S., for the most part, one of the reasons why I want to have a full-time job is for healthcare. Because in Europe, for the most part, you have a universal healthcare system, you have a safety net, and that is something that you provide to your people, which the Americans do not do. right? So there's this old construct that we have to move out of, and many, from a tax standpoint, from a healthcare standpoint. So the Americans have set themselves in the early 1900s, and we are finding it very hard to get the hell out.
So this whole Jack Welch type of economy capitalistic world where it fades away. It's no longer the reality we're living in. Yeah. Interesting. So I want to ask you about your podcast and transition into the work like communication in the workplace, because you and your co-host Cheese, you have such an amazing synergy, and when I listen to you, you can't like take away your eyes or your ears from you, and when I listen to you, to me it sounds like a great example of a communication. Like, what are some key ingredients you would point out for human beings to have this type of communication, and specifically, how do people develop this kind of open, transparent relationships at work, if it's even necessary per your view?
Yeah, I think so. Well, Joel and I have known each other for almost 20 years. I'd say, close to 15 plus years. So we have that dynamic where we know each other, we're friends. So it's much easier for us to have those conversations. And the whole podcast, you can go to chadcheese.com, check it out. But the whole podcast was predicated on, the foundation was, what does it sound like at a conference, like at an HR conference, where two guys are in the bar? What are they talking about, right? How does it sound? It doesn't sound like on a business call. You're going to get the brass tacks. You're going to get exactly what they feel, right? And especially about products and marketing and messaging and companies and those types of things. The only person I report to is my wife. The only person he reports to is his wife, right? So we don't have these big brands, and we tell all the companies who become partners and actually sponsor Chad and Cheese is that this is what you get. If you don't like it, then that's good, but you don't belong here. If you do like it and you want it, this is where you belong, right? And I think that's one of the things that is really hard for most human beings, especially nowadays, is to be able to feel like they can actually allow themselves out, right? Because they might say something wrong or what have you, and there's not this grace. There's not enough grace between us as human beings as we're looking to actually look for ways to try to get somebody, right? It's almost like, well, wait a minute, they said this wrong. None of that matters. We're human. We make mistakes. I say stupid shit on the podcast. He does too. We're there at each other. But we've relationship together. He's earned it, that the frank response from me, and I have from him too.
You see, for me, that's such an instrumental topic, because I feel like kindness is oftentimes kind of misunderstood and taken for weakness.
Yes, which is incredibly wrong. That's a testosterone-driven thing.
Yeah, and I think that I'm actually looking for my sort of service that I provide to people, because I found that I tried several things. I even tried helping people to prepare for a job interview. So, but right now I'm calling myself a communication coach in English, and I help people not only with English, but understanding some basics as it comes to psychology, as it comes to presenting yourself, and like doing public speaking and stuff like that. And I recently listened to this podcast on Tatiana's podcast, Smart Branding, that you've been a guest to, remember? and she had a
Yeah.
guy
Yep.
from the company that designs pitch decks. Yeah, a really interesting guy, a really interesting fella, and he says that so many founders use so many unnecessary technical big words and acronyms. You know, my sound is not very good. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Chad, you can hear me well enough? Okay.
Yep. I can hear you.
So why is that we want to use all these big words, all these funky fancy words? Why even you consider it as like it seems like in order to come off as a smart, intelligent person, you kind of need to use all these big words. My question to you is: are we shifting away? At least you guys in the United States, are you shifting away from this paradigm? It's still the case, and we got some work to do here.
Yeah, first and foremost, we use those words to be able to show off as human beings, right?
Yeah.
The ego is very big in human beings, no matter what, right? And we want to show off what we know, and we're proud of what we know, and that's okay, right? But the thing is, the most important piece is that people understand what you are saying. So this is all about articulation, right? So being able to articulate what is in your head, which is not the easiest thing to do. Not to mention also articulate what some of these frameworks are, what AI is. And it's one of the things that we try to do this week. We're talking about large language models versus, more domain-specific language models. There's a difference. And HR needs to understand that because there are some vendors that are using more large language models and some that are more prone to domain-specific, which might make more sense to them. The thing is, you have to be able to explain away the big terms. And for anybody to literally understand you and to want to work with you, you don't want them to feel dumb, right? You want to have them feel like they're included. And again, that you're providing the grace for them to become educated, ask questions, and to be approachable.
Yeah, to be approachable. And I think a good word here, relatable. Is that what we're looking for? We look as human beings, we're looking for reasons to relate to each other. And I think it's something that
Yes.
Draws into each other, right, and helps the rapport.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is that it's one of the things that, let's say, for instance, like the Myers-Briggs test gives everybody these 4 letters, that everybody's a part of. Well, it's the test is a bunch of bullshit, to be quite frank. But why it's lasted so long is because everybody is looking for their tribe. They're looking for their group. And if you can see that relevance between you two, then you have something to talk about, that you feel a little bit closer to that human being. So I think that's kind of like a microcosm of what it is to be a human being. You're always looking for your tribe.
And on this point, do you think that what salespeople do by trying to manipulate you and kind of press certain buttons and stuff of this nature, pretty much deceiving themselves, because they can convert the world. And if the brand's philosophy does not match your philosophy, right? I think you won't have like good relationships. Just like two people might not have good relationship when they're about different things. So, what's your take on the salespeople in general? And maybe you can give me an advice, because you can feel for like what kind of person I am. I'm an energetic person and I really like communication. Maybe you can give me advice if I can pursue sales in an active way, or I just do me and chill back and just live my life.
Yeah, so I'm going to show off a little bit. I've been in sales for most of my life, and
Oh,
every position I've
sorry.
been in, no, 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 no. I
Okay.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. But every position I've been in, I've always been the top salesperson, and I've always been the top salesperson for one reason. I wasn't trying to be something else. I was trying to just be me. And here's the thing, and this is what we all need to understand, is that you're not always going to, you can't please everybody, right? So because when you try to please everybody, you please nobody. You
That's
understand, and this is very much like our podcast. We don't sell this to people who have problems and they don't drive with how we see the world, right? If you want to listen, that's great. If you don't want to listen, guess what? That's great too, because we're looking for people who want to, they don't have to buy into our opinion. As a matter of fact, they don't have to agree with us at all, but they have to be wanting to get into the discussion. They want to get into discussion, to get engaged, which is one of the reasons why we have such cult followers. People who follow us, they wear t-shirts, they show up at events and those types of things. That is us knowing who those people and understanding that we can't please everybody. When you're in a sales position, when you go into a prospective client and you start to pitch them, and you can see that it's probably not going to go your way, that's when I would just cut back and say, okay, that's great. If you do want to talk to me someday, that's awesome. Here's my card. Have a nice day. Or, I'd love to be able to talk to you. Here's my information. But I know that sitting there and pounding away at why they need us, it just pushes them further away. If I, right out of the gate, just leave, then they're going to say, you know what?
Yeah.
I kind of dig that guy, right? I kind of dig that guy. He didn't sit and beat me down.
They're gonna respect you even more if you don't obsessively try to sell. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
cool with that. And we have a company here. We have a bank, really like the most technologically advanced bank, the first mobile bank in our country, called Mother Bank. And what they preach is pretty much, we choose lasting relationships, not one night stands. So if I don't sell you anything right now, it's okay, but at least we stay friends. And somewhere down the road, they're definitely going to remember that there's the guy who's like a nice guy, and I need what he can offer right now, not maybe in past. Okay, cool. So on this subject, or maybe just segueing a little bit, what do you think about the necessity of marketing yourself? Either being employed in a big company, a middle-sized company, a startup, or not. So like how crucial it is for us, because it's understandable that designers, they have the portfolio on Pinterest. It's like common practice. But how about other people who are used to being employed? And now we see these mass layoffs, things going up, like all over the world, companies do layoffs. So what do you think? Is there should people market themselves? Should they start doing some personal branding? And maybe you have some examples of people who even went away from a corporate job to just pursue their freelance career or self employment career.
Yeah, I think in my journey, what was important for me was to actually take a look at my resume, and then literally, this is an exercise that everybody should do. They should go in and they should say, what did I actually do at that company? What projects was I involved in? What was I responsible for, et cetera, and just literally break it down. And then as you break that down, that starts to become a story, right? And what we do as human beings is that we are storytellers, and we like stories, right? So you can take that big glob of things that you did just at that one position, and boil it down into a few very easy stories for you to remember, right? And for somebody else to remember to take away. And that is for, again, if somebody's looking at your CV and they ask you about a specific position, you can say, yeah, I've got a great story about that. And then you can tell the story, and then, go through and answer the question as well. That is a way for you to understand yourself and to collect those thoughts, and then to be able to articulate them in a way that people receive, right? So this is give and take. So for me,
that's awesome.
Just my personal story, going from Ronstad to doing the podcast, I broke out, went back to doing consulting again. Joel Cheese and myself, we started the podcast as a branding exercise for ourselves, right? Our voices out there, or those types of things. And that's what I did. I started really to focus on my story, my message, and who I was, because I know that, in many interviews, you start to answer questions as they come. So it's kind of like tennis. And that's what they get used to. When you start to do something, a story behind how these things actually happen, then they start to get sunk in, and they want to be more a part of that story. They want to understand that story. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, it's really cool that you put this into this context of job interview, because the foremost presentation is our self-presentation, that we should learn and practice in front of the mirror. I don't know, and this story part, because you remember Steve Jobs, he's always said in his speech, some commencement speech or whatever, he said that you can only connect the dots looking backwards. You can never connect them looking forward, so up front. And when you look at your life, magically the dots connect in an amazing way, right? Like as if someone was painting a picture or writing a story. So 100%, you can really create a great story out of your past, which flows well into what you do now, because you most probably are capitalizing on the experience that you have amassed over the years.
Yeah. But that only happens if you take the time and you go through and you give yourself the exercise, because that's an exercise for you. That's an exercise for here and for here. That will allow you to articulate more, but it is very good for you to get inside of your looking back, because you'll find amazing things that you did. And I can tell you some of the stupidest things that I did, but that's good, because hopefully I'm not going to do that again. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. We're actually covering the majority of my questions, and we're only halfway down. So I wanted to ask you also, do you think that, because Simon Sinek, he sets a lot of examples from Navy SEALs and the structure that they have there, Navy SEALs and the Marines, and I know that you were basically in the military too, and now you work with veterans, right? So what are some rules or some methods that you see from the military, right, from the U.S. Army and different forces, that can be as well applied to our hiring or organizing things in your company? Maybe setting up KPIs, or because it's not that, like, I was really surprised when Simon said that the highest performing organization on earth, which is Navy SEALs, they actually appreciate and they cherish they don't cherish performance over trust. Like the trust thing is, if they would even prefer not a toxic person, an average performer, but are really trustworthy, they prefer him to a jerk who's super high performer. So I mean that
Yeah.
took like so interesting. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was in the military for 20, infantry drill sergeant down in Fort Benning, Georgia for a good amount of time. So being able to train individuals was also a part of this. So this is very near and dear to my heart. The big difference between corporate America and the military is the military literally is about team, and corporate America is about me. It's an individual, and you might have team goals. You might have team goals, but for the most part, you don't get bonuses or commissions or anything like that over team goals. So in the military, the trust is so important because you are in a life and death situation. I mean, you have to be able to trust that person to your left and to your right? Not to mention, you also have to ensure that they are trained not just at their level, but above their level. Because if you lose a leader, you have to be able to backfill in that instant to be that leader, right? So you have to know the person's job to the left of you, to the right of you, above you, all the way through. So there isn't really that big of a similarity between corporate America and the military. In corporate America, I want you to come in, I want you to do this job. And if I'm your manager, in many cases, I don't want you to ever leave my team, right? So I want to keep you right here because you're a good worker. That's not what the military is about, right? The military is about growth, about getting better, and about the whole ecosystem. There is a short-lived term on the corporate America side that is only focused on me. Now, if I help my peers to get better, what does that do for me? That doesn't do anything for me. Is that going to give me a bigger salary? Probably not. Is that going to give me more commission? Well, if they get a bigger commission, I don't get a bigger commission, right? In traditional setups. So as we talk about the team in corporate America, it's all literal bullshit. We do that from the standpoint of saying family and team because we want those individuals to be emotionally a part of something so that we can get more out of them, right? In the military, that's just part of it, man. I mean, you either put yourself into it or you're going to get kicked out because they don't trust you. That trust doesn't exist in corporate America like it does in the military.
Ooh, that's hard because you know I've been blind to this fact. I was under the impression that we're looking up to the United States and to companies in the US that have adapted leadership and have adapted trusting teams, you know, and in a way I now realize that maybe in my country, you know how well we came to when this external enemy appeared.
Yeah.
So maybe after this conversation, I'll start looking at Ukrainian businesses from this perspective, where we don't need to kind of catch up with corporate America. We have our own rules of the game, and if I can contribute into helping people, you know, building transparent, like efficient but efficient organizations based on transparency and honesty, and you know, and trying to and leadership development, maybe that's something that definitely want to do, and that's cool. That
well, I'd like to say that if you if you stay. So with regard to the example with the Ukraine, you know, it is so heartening to watch the gelling of the population. But once again, there's an element there that is very militaristic because it is life or death, right? And you will get people who will slam together and they will gel because they're is that enemy, and we know, right? We know who that is. So I think that, again, when you inject something that literally life or death into a scenario, you will see the whole concept of group turn into a team because you have a reason, right?
And you can't create a hazard artificially. It ain't gonna work, right? Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah. Just because you didn't hit your sales goals, that means nothing compared to, what you guys are going through. It means nothing compared to what you guys are going through.
Let's talk about AI for 5, 6 minutes. And guys, if you have some questions, we'll let you ask Chad whatever you want in the last 5 minutes. So what do you think about the technological revolution, if for the lack of a better word, that's happening right now with the AI? And what are some, because I saw a post on your profile about the virtual assistant. It's a lady who onboards you. It's an AI sort of solution. So can you walk us through like some of the coolest things that you see and maybe that are going to be implemented in the foreseeable month?
Sure. Well, and I'll give you an example. So let's say you're a recruiter, right? There are a lot of tasks during the day within your job that suck. They just suck. They take all the breath out, and if you didn't live in their menial tasks, they're administrative, they just suck. And if you could do without those routine kind of tasks within your job, would it make your life better? Yes. So that's where automation comes in. HR is and always has been understaffed, which has made those experiences that we all have, whether it's recruiting, it's onboarding, whatever it is, it makes them less human because people go into a black hole. So allowing automation to carry the weight of those repetitive and administrative and really crappy tasks humans do, they allow the human to free up some time to do more white glove human to human services. So I believe AI, RPA, so robotic process automation, and just in itself is going to allow humans to be more human. Now, here's where, careful, as business leaders, there will be this focus on trying to cut jobs in, with automation. When you have a human-centric job like we do as recruiters or what have you, that can never happen, right? You can use it from an augmented standpoint where you're augmenting the human with automation and AI, but you can't take that human out of the space because this is human-centric, period.
Yeah. And, but for me, the biggest concern is what, and I think for every human being, we question ourselves, like we question whether or not we will kind of become obsolete, whether we will be like, we'll be replaced by the technology. So far, I see that it's a great assistant, and if you learn how to use the AI, it will only make you better. And the people who fall short not learning it, they will just hang back. And those who will use them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, we have to progress and we have to get better at what we do. And that being said, this might lead to other opportunities to do other things as well, right? So if we, and most throughout my entire career, people who have adapted to technology quicker, they've been able to do their jobs better, more efficiently, right? And therefore, prospectively, jump through the ranks, get another job, or even find themselves in another department just because they took the time to actually learn and to get into better themselves. So I think throughout history, we've been able to kill jobs, but also when we're killing jobs, we're creating even more jobs. In this case, especially again with human resources, there's something that is centric into humanness, which is what we do, can't be taken away. Can the efficiencies be pushed in so that we can do our job better so it doesn't suck as much? Yeah. Will that really focus on the individuals who are trying to be professionals in this industry versus just passing through? Yeah, I do agree. I think we'll have less people passing through and we'll have more people focusing on being more tech-centric and human-centric, right, together to be able to do their job more effectively.
Well, you can't fake being human. You can't fake this feeling, or you can take away the feeling of just being present in one room. And I think we missed being in one room so much.
Yes.
And
yes, we did.
And you know, when I think about it, maybe if I were to look for a job right now, I would even look for something in-house, because sometimes, but that's me. I'm a person who but who gets energized around other people. So it's just something that I can't live without, the in-person human communication. So I hopefully we'll be in a better shape than we were pre-COVID right now, as we've seen it all now. We've seen what is the alternative, right? And now everyone picks their poison, picks their own solution, right? Okay, so we have a question.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Oh no, it's just a comment that people should always smile and give compliment to each other. Then everything will be easy. Smile. Thanks for the broadcast. You're welcome. Yeah. So you were saying, Chuck.
Yeah. I agree with that. It's funny because I actually just went to the store before this because I realized I didn't have any Guinness, and today is St. Patrick's Day. So I went to the store, and whenever now I go to the store, I force myself to smile, and then you find that more people smile back at you, and then you want to smile bigger. So I mean, it's one of those things where there's such divisions in the country, all over the world. If we just, again, are more kind, smile, and give each other grace. We are human beings. We're fallible, right? Don't look for the person to fail. When they do, be there to help pick them up, smile, and do it together, because that's the only way. Again, this is very military-centric. That's the only way we get better.
And that resonates with me so much. I understand that there are no winners and losers in business, just like there are no winners and losers in relationships or education, right? It's the concept of infinite game that Simon Sinek is talking about. And if you see people or other players in the game as your competitors, it seems like you're spending too much time looking at them, not at advancing your cause or like growing up yourself, right? So being too obsessed with competition could be toxic, could be detrimental. And as people,
embrace that.
Yeah, being of support.
I mean,
supporting each
literally,
other.
we have other podcasts that are in our space, right? And they're different than our podcasts. Promote each other. We're actually looking at doing things together because you can't own the entire market. You never will. And once you get that in your freaking head, you'll understand that doing things together provides that support and even the ability to amplify each other. So if you're trying to do this all by yourself, if you have others who you're amplifying and they're amplifying you, you again have this real team effect as opposed to being the corporate individual.
So we have a question. That's a good one. What are top 3 traits of character which you most appreciate in people chat? That's a good one.
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard. I mean, being able to character has a lot to do with who you are as a person, right? And what we like to do is we like to look for people like ourselves, because again, that's our tribe. We're looking for people that we can relate to. And what I've learned, so I'm going to kind of answer the question. What I've learned is to look for people who can do the job but aren't just like me, because I already have certain solution sets in my head, right? There are other solution sets that are out there that if I get people just like me, we're going to have the same solutions all the time. To be able to diversify business, to be able to look at different angles of the pie, of the prospect solution or the problem itself, we need different types of people, not walking the same way. So people that, obviously you can trust, which is hard, but instead of worrying about character, because you're not going to find that in 10 minutes. Anybody who believes they're going to know your character in an interview is full of shit. They don't know that. What you have to know is you have to know what those individuals bring to the table, if they're qualified, and they're not just like you.
Yeah. So I think you're talking about the overused word in authenticity is what you're talking about, and be courageous enough to be yourself, because being yourself is pretty scary shit. Right?
It is. I mean, you got to put yourself out there, but
yeah.
the thing is, again, you're only going to know that over time if this person is being authentic. You're never going to know that right out of the gate. I can talk to somebody and they could feel like they were fake, but I don't know that. That is my bias. Saying that I think they're being fake. I don't know that for sure, right? So I think we way too many things, too many decisions in our brain before we even have an opportunity to really understand what that individual is like. I just know they're not like me, so I don't like them.
But you see, unlike military, we might not be presented an opportunity to really check, if the person is trustworthy. So how much time do you give on average to understand if you can trust the person in business?
Yeah, well, when it comes to business, I mean, the only thing that you can do is, first and foremost, you're not going to know whether you can trust them right out of the gate. You do reference checks, background checks, those types of things. But overall, you're not going to know how this person really is around a team, around any of that, right? All you know is history, unfortunately. Now, there are all these, predictive assessments and things that I just don't believe in, because you are the person in time who you are right now. Things around you shape, right, where you're moving. So yeah, I think what we need to think about when building business is it the right person with the right skill sets? And I'm not going to make a decision on whether I think I can trust them or not beyond that of the references and people that I know, and trying to figure out who this person really is, because I won't know within hour, even a few days.
I have a mentor. It's a lady. She now lives in San Francisco. She actually recently got a job at Stanford. It's some leadership program, and she's a very successful woman. And I helped her, which is funny. I helped her to fill in her About Me page on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Before ChatGPT, even though it does a shitty job. I mean, it uses so many filler words. It's best assistance for a college student who write essays, in my opinion. But yeah, she told me once, touching on your point, she told me once, Sergey, you gotta start looking for a conflict of values with every single person you run into in business. Like you gotta, like, which is kind
Uh-huh.
of controversial to me because I'm an open person, even naive, you know, and I've been punished for my naiveness. Believe it or not, my first business that I built with my co-founder, he and investors, they kind of got together, and I was kind of asked to leave the company that I myself co-founded.
Uh-huh.
So that's because I'm just a nice guy. So what's your maybe advice to guys like me, or should we in business should we kind of elaborate and develop this kind of defense mechanism or whatever that will help us navigate through business?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're looking at, it's kind of like Joel and I. We knew each other at least 10 years before we actually started doing things together. We knew each other, and we made literally a handshake contract. Would I do that with a founder that I just met? No way, right? I would need something that would be in paper that actually outlined what we're doing, how we're doing, who owns what, etc. So you have to put those safety measures in place,
Yeah,
unfortunately, because humans are humans. The thing is, if you can do that, then much like your mentor said, you know, if you're trying to assess every single person that you're coming up against from a business standpoint, that is as tiring as hell, right? I want to focus on the problem, and I want to focus on who can actually get me there. If I've got the right infrastructure set up from a safety net standpoint, then I shouldn't worry about anything else. That's one of the things that I think we trust too much early because we don't
yeah,
know them, but we want to move toward trust. We want to move toward put paper in place. It's not too much. We put paper in place to safeguard ourselves, and then we just move out. I mean, that's all we can do. You know, there's no perfect example. I don't think.
yeah. Oh, that was informative, Chad. You guys, if you have questions, we might take like one more, but I think yeah, we've been on air for an hour. That was super interesting, and I'm surprised by how many similarities in your view, you know, of the work, and how military actually is the way it is. It was a real eye opener to me, and it's also an eye opener that people still care about themselves only in the United States, and all the teamwork is far fetched, you know. So yeah, that was super interesting, chat. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. You have a great day, and take care. Bye.
You too. Everybody stay safe.
Guys, stay safe. Same to you.
So, Solancha.